Hello everyone, Steven here from Redolessence with another fragrance review. And today we have a fragrance from the designer house of Giorgio Armani, and this one is called Attitude. This is a fragrance that has been a little bit under the radar. I think it deserves a lot more attention than what it's been getting, and it just never seemed to reach the popularity that other fragrances from the Armani house have, like Acqua di Gio and Armani Code, and even the flankers of Code. This is one that has been under the radar, like I said, and I think it fell short of many people's expectations just because it was composed by three of the most notable perfumers in the industry, and it didn't really stand out. It didn't really do too much for them. I think that there's something very special going on in this fragrance. Now, the perfumers, or the noses behind this fragrance, are Annick Minardo, Olivier Cresp, and Alberto Morillas. This one was composed back in 2007, and from what I'm given to understand, or from the information that I've gathered from other reviewers and websites, is that this one has already been discontinued. Now, there was a flanker of this one, an extreme version. I prefer the original. I think it's very subtle. It has its own nuances and definitely few characteristics about the fragrance that really seem to stand out and that make it a crowd pleaser, just like the other Armani fragrances. It's something very safe, it's a very good blind buy, and it's something to be worn more during semi-formal to formal occasions, in my opinion. There's something very sophisticated about this fragrance, and this is something that they aim to capture from the very beginning. They aim to create a fragrance that represented or captured the essence of the sophistication and elegance of Italian cinema. Indeed, when I smell this fragrance, I guess now because the idea has been pushed so much, those images are certainly evoked for me. This one certainly is reminiscent of Italian classics, especially ones released during the imposition of the Hays Code, such as La Dolce Vita, The Bicycle Thief. I would even go as far as saying that this one reminds me of cult classics like The Godfather. So this is a fragrance that certainly does push those evocative boundaries. But it smells really, really nice. And of course, if you've seen the ad campaign for this video, it is or what appears to be an Italian or Caucasian gentleman with his hair greased and slicked back. He's topless, and the whole thing is in black and white. So it does have that classic vintage feel to it. This is certainly a fragrance that really did satisfy the themes that it was aimed to convey, and I'll get a little bit more in detail about that when we talk about the rating. But up next, let's tackle presentation. So first up, let's take a look at the box. I have the 2.5 ounce box here, and just to show you, the 1.7 ounce box is right here as well. So there's nothing too different about them. They both look identical in that sense. Just one of them is a little elongated. You do have Attitude written here on the front, Giorgio Armani written toward the bottom. You have this repetitive diamond pattern here in the front with what appears to be like an aluminum finish, and it's very lustrous, so very appealing in that sense. You have the UPC code on the side, and you have the ingredients listed on the back with the serial number on the bottom of this fragrance. So very nice presentation. You have Attitude embossed in there. And then as far as the bottle goes, this is really what caught my attention, is that it flips open and kind of just hangs there like a Zippo lighter. It's very reminiscent of a cigarette lighter. Clicks close. You have Giorgio Armani in the top of the bottle here. It's embossed in there. And you have the serial number on the bottom as well. So very nice presentation with this fragrance. The cap, however, is very fragile. It's not meant to be opened all the way, so please keep that in mind. Now, as far as the notes for Armani Attitude go, just judging by the presentation alone, I was expecting a lot of tobacco from this one. There's no tobacco in this one at all, actually. It opens up with a nice coffee smell. Coffee complemented by a little bit of lemon. It doesn't really take too much away from the coffee smell that this one gives off, but it certainly just adds a little bit of personality to the fragrance. Being that there isn't too much lemon, or at least I'm not detecting, I'm certainly not detecting too much lemon from this fragrance. It does certainly take away from the freshness, so this isn't a fragrance that you would put on just to freshen up, like many people who I know do after they get out of the shower with fragrances like Mugler Cologne and Prada's Infusion Dome. This is certainly one to be reserved for formal to semi-formal occasions. So it's a very nice black coffee note in the opening. There's a little bit of sweetness, and I think that's attributed to the cardamom that we have in the middle of this fragrance. There's also a little bit of amber in the base. So this one doesn't necessarily start off sweet, but once it transitions into the mid, that sweetness really does start to come out, and it projects fairly well, even when I'm in the middle of this fragrance. Now, in the mid, you also do get a little bit of lavender in there. I think that's very traditionally used in perfumery, so it's kind of not necessarily expected, but it's something that really gives a very familiar smell to this fragrance in the development. And then in the base, you also have a little bit of patchouli, a popanax, which doesn't give too much of a resinous feel to this fragrance, but there's also a lot of cedar in this one. Now, although the cedar is a base note in this fragrance, it's very, very evident from the very top of this fragrance. And I usually tend to associate wood dominant fragrances with formal occasions. I don't know why. It's just something that, I've always got into the habit of spraying a woody or a wood dominated fragrance when I'm in a suit and tie. So this is one that I certainly associate with formal occasions. And then I think that complements the coffee very, very well, because both the woods and the coffee are very evident from the opening. Now, I know many people are familiar with the sweeter coffee fragrances, especially ones that are more on the gourmand side of things, like New Harlem by Bond Number 9. The only disclaimer that I do have to give about this fragrance is that it gives off more of a black coffee type of vibe. There's no chai latte or cappuccino feel in this one. It's just more of a black coffee vibe, and that certainly should be evident for me because that's how I drink my coffee. But another thing that I do want to throw in there is that this is a fragrance that I have received a lot of compliments with. So it might be one of the reasons why I'm inclined to say that this is my favorite Armani fragrance, but I was actually wearing this fragrance once to school, which kind of defeats the purpose of me saying that I picture myself wearing this during formal occasions when that wasn't formal by any means. But I wore this to school once, and I was actually running a little bit late. I walked into the classroom about 5 minutes after the bell had rang, and I was slowly trying to very, covertly make my way to the seat because I didn't want to disrupt the class session because the professor was lecturing and everything. And there was a girl who got a little verbal. She spoke up and she said, "Oh, what are you wearing?" And I said, "Armani Attitude." She goes, "Oh, okay, smells very nice." But the way that she said it, it interrupted the whole class. And everybody stopped and looked at her and then looked at me, including the professor. So this is one that I did get a little bit of attention with. And of course, my girlfriend loves it. And I'm always having people ask me what it is. And I think one of the reasons is that this fragrance isn't necessarily as popular as the other fragrances in the Armani house, as I mentioned earlier. So this is one that kind of fell under the radar, but it does have something very, very special going for it. This is a very authentic coffee scent. If I had to say anything, I would say it's leaning more in the direction of Pure Coffee by Thierry Mugler from the Angel Men line. But it's certainly not a gourmand in any sense of that word, although there is a little bit of sweetness attributed to both the cardamom in the mid and the amber in the base. But it doesn't have a resinous feel, so keep that in mind. But this is an excellent, excellent fragrance overall, a really nice smell that I've grown very fond of, and this is a fragrance that I think grows on you. When you put this on for the first time, you might not really get too much out of it, but once you give it multiple wearings and you really allow this a chance to develop on your skin and for you to get into the habit of smelling this on yourself, this is a fragrance that I think anybody could really fall in love with. And if you want something a little more pronounced, then of course you do have the extreme version, which, as I'm given to understand, is discontinued as well, but it's still very, very widely found on online retailers like Amazon.com. So with that being said, let's get down to the rating of this fragrance. So up first we have uniqueness, and this one earned an 8 out of 10. Like I said, this is a very nice black coffee vibe from the very opening, and it has a little bit of lemon in there, not necessarily to freshen it up, but just to give it a little bit of a personality. And this is a fragrance that stays sweet all around. You have the cardamom in the mid, you have the amber in the base, so it's a nice, sophisticated, subtle, it's bold, but at the same time, it's very humble and very modest. So this is a fragrance that has those nuances in it, and that's what I appreciate the most about it. And like I said, I imagine myself wearing this in formal to semi-formal occasions, and this is a scent that I've associated with those types of occasions. So I definitely reach for this when I'm trying to give off that certain feel or that certain personality or mood when I'm attending those occasions. So a very nice fragrance for what it's worth, and that's an 8 out of 10. Then of course for longevity, I gave this one an 8 out of 10 as well, in the sense that this is an eau de toilette concentration. So it should last 4 to 6 hours. I have gotten a good 8 hours of this stuff on my skin. Of course, I have been fortunate enough to get fragrances that have lasted longer than that on my skin, but you really shouldn't be expecting anything too much from this one, especially being that it has a very good value. Even now, post the fact that it's been discontinued, you can still find this at a very affordable price online. So give this one a look for and check it out. And I'm pretty sure if you like coffee scents, especially after my disclaimer of it being a black coffee type of scent. If you don't appreciate that smell, then I don't think you will appreciate this fragrance. But if you do, then I certainly recommend you check this one out. And I've gotten very, very good longevity out of this one. And I think that's attributed to the woods in the base. So 8 out of 10 for longevity. And then for projection, I give this one an 8 out of 10 as well. Now, it projects, but not necessarily in the way that many people would expect this one to. I get very good projection from citrus-dominated fragrances. And the one thing that really projects in this fragrance is the coffee and the woods. So I get very good projection, 3.5 to 4 hours out of this one, and so well that people have actually asked me what I was wearing 3 to 4 hours after I put this one on, when my nose had already tuned it out and I thought it had completely evaporated off my skin or had turned into a skin scent rather, but I've still had people inquire and ask me what I'm wearing. So this definitely can it can trick you. It can fool your nose into thinking that this one is no longer evident on your skin when indeed it is, and other people will pick up on it. So this is an 8 out of 10 for projection. Then up next we have versatility, and I had to stoop a little bit lower on this one. I gave this one a 5 out of 10 for many, many reasons. First of all, like I said, this one cannot be worn during casual occasions. The coffee is very casual, but the woods and the resins and the apopanax and the amber, those make it a little more appropriate for a formal occasion, in my opinion. Of course, to each his own. If it makes you happy wearing this to the gym, then by all means wear this to the gym. If it makes you happy wearing it to school, then do that as well. But personally, I would wear this during formal occasions. And of course, maybe the presentation of the fragrance kind of ties into the reason why I would wear it during those occasions as well, just because it kind of gives off that type of vibe. But in any case, formal to semi-formal occasions, I would wear this during the night. I think it's much too potent to be worn during the day. There's nothing too fresh or too casual about it. And then, being that it does have that touch of sophistication to it, I can't really picture anyone under the age of 25 wearing this fragrance. But I would probably limit the age range between 25 to 50 years old. I suppose an older gentleman could wear this as well. I just happen to always imagine them wearing 80s powerhouses or like oak moss dominant fragrances, but I suppose anyone could wear this as long as you have the personality to complement it. I suppose even someone in high school, as long as if you're a very mature junior or senior, you could probably pull this off as well. And it is marketed for men, and I have to say that I cannot picture a woman wearing this fragrance. So with that being said, let's transition over into the presentation of this fragrance, and I gave this one a 9 out of 10. We've already covered the presentation. The only thing that really did not allow me to give this one a perfect mark in terms of presentation is that, or I should just put it like this, the fragility of the cap. It's very fragile. I've been to many department stores, Sephora and Macy's, that have carried this fragrance, and on 3 multiple occasions, I have seen a bottle on the shelf with the cap broken off. And at first, I wondered if maybe it just didn't have a cap because it was a tester. But being that the manufacturing of the bottle, I actually saw the cap missing, but there was still a pin sticking out of the top portion, the corner over here. So that pin being there was indicative of the fact that it did indeed have a cap. It just happened to break off. And I guess that's because either people drop it or they try to open the cap all the way when it's not meant to. So yeah, this is a fragrance that is very fragile in that sense. So it's very nice presentation, but you do have to be careful with it. So a 9 out of 10 for that. And then that brings this fragrance to an overall rating of 38 out of 50. So that was my review of Armani Attitude. Thank you very, very much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know by leaving a comment down below. As always, thank you for watching. This has been Stephen with another fragrance review from Redolessence.